What grinds your gears, Colton?
That noise, the noise you just made. Damn it. Sometimes the thoughts in my head really get me. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Professional Hippies. We're your hosts. I'm Colton. This is Dylan. And if you are new to us or if we're new to you, we like to find the middle ground somewhere between professionalism, whatever that might mean to you, stocks, bonds, suits and ties, and hippie woo woo. We all know what that means. And if you don't, well, that's all right. We'll educate you tonight. So this episode's brought to you by one of our only running affiliates right now, testkitplus.com. You too can trust strangers with them. I think we have a couple different affiliate links you can go in there and support the show with. But if you go testkitplus.com/professional hippies, you can support yourself and trust in strangers, whatever that might mean to you, and support the show. So without further ado, hey Dylan, what grinds your gears?
Not that it grinds my gears, but it definitely popped in my head with testkitplus.com. The past few posts that they've made on their stories is literally how to make cocaine.
Really?
It literally was like, this is how cocaine is made, part 1. And literally like, this is how they do it. And when they're in the jungle, they usually do it like this. Unless you're in a lab, then you do it like this. And they were like, that's part 1. Part 2 coming soon.
They're posting this on their social media?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe
it was very interesting. They're like, just so you know, this is what should be in your product. If for it says in the beginning, like for educational reasons, we're going to show you so you know what should be in your product.
You know what's funny about that though? Like Dave Asprey the other day, I saw, the guy from Bulletproof Coffee.
Yeah.
Abby showed me a post that he put on Instagram that said cocaine 100% plant-based. And I thought that was hysterical. But it was actually like really catching piece of marketing because it was talking about the nutritional facts of things. So it was actually fairly educational. The fact, like, if you don't look further than just the back of the can, or like Dr. Panzer when he came on talking about, some of the different things that your body can only have so much of in a day. So like where they're pulling certain vitamins from, or the allotment that they have on the back of a can, like, hey, 100% of your daily whatever.
Yeah.
But what's not mentioned is that that's coming from an artificial source. So if you have a Celsius drink or a Monster Energy, and then you have some other artificial sweetener or some other stuff, then now all of a sudden you're 400 or 500% above what you need to be for your daily allotment. And it's not daily allotment like you need to have this in your body. It's like, this is what we consider to be top end, 100% what you should be having in a day. And then all of a sudden, by the end of the day, you're eating chocolate covered pretzels and you're like, wow, that ain't good for the body right there.
And it's going into coffee. It's so hard because I've been trying to track everything I'm eating, and you start actually tracking what you're eating every day, and you're like, man, I am a gluttonous piece of shit.
Do you track what you eat?
I've been tracking it a lot more. It's so hard though, because you'll go eat something and then you're like, how do I even track that? That's like a homemade meal.
What do you use? MyFitnessPal?
I was using MyFitnessPal until they start charging you out the ass for just to do what you want it to do. I use Lose It now. It's the free version's enough. That's all I need.
Mm-hmm. Is that your trainer having you do that, or are you just doing that for your own kind of benefit?
The trainer got me into it.
Yeah.
He was like, hey, let's start just counting calories. So that way you're tracking. He's like, still eat what you normally do if you want, and then start tracking. And he goes, that if you start tracking it, that alone will start forcing you mentally. It should to watch what you eat more.
Just the awareness of the act of tracking something makes you more aware. Like if you check your bank account more often, you're way more likely not to buy just senseless stuff because you're aware of what you're spending. Versus going to Disney and having that just tap, it's Disney money, whatever. I'll pay.
Man, what if that should be a notification? I've never seen that on a bank notification. Like, hey, would you like a reminder every other hour what your account is at?
You can do that on this episode of Grind My Gears. I mean, I got a list here, and one of them is Wells Fargo.
Let's hear it. I'm with them too. I've had my problems.
Last month I took all of my automatic billing off of Wells Fargo. I transferred everything to Ally because Ally will do that. They also let you do other cool stuff like set up buckets. So like whenever you get your deposit or whatever, it'll automatically go into my savings for this, my savings for that. and then you can also have that roll over into your Roth and deposit directly into your money market account.
I love
So
Ally.
it just automatically. So you already have an account with them?
Oh yeah, I've had them for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love them. A couple
Now
accounts
they're
with them.
integrated with everything. Like before, I only
Mhm.
had Wells Fargo because my S corp LLC, whatever my accountant set up, wouldn't link up to Ally directly. But
Yeah,
now Ally's been continuing to kind of improve their relationships with vendors, et cetera, and stuff.
their
So
stock is so good too. I bought it a while back. I was like, oh, this is so. They've been around for over 100 years.
really,
So Ally, when they first started, they were the finance company for General Motors. Like when you go to buy a
hmm
car and the dealership uses their,
like Honda Finance, et cetera.
yeah, something like that. This was General Motors used Ally, the company. And then Ally saw they were one of the first ones to get into the online banking. They saw what was happening and then diverted from GM and created their own entity and started getting online banking. And they're one of the top, because that's what they did. They're one of the top like people to go to get your car loans for.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I learned a
And their
lot
APR
from
is great
just
on savings.
every time Joey comes on. Like last week, I feel like I learned just something different. It gets me thinking about money, and I think it was
Mm.
after that episode where I was like, I've been meaning to do this forever because I forgot to transfer something, my automatic bill pay. And then Wells Fargo charges me like $150 for overdrafting an account and
Oh, yeah,
whatever. I mean,
no.
it was like 50 and it's stacked, and it's because we opened this
Yeah.
account for you to prevent that. And I'm like, you know what? You guys can stick it. Okay.
I remember calling Wells Fargo when I was like post college, real broke, trying to make student loans and stuff. And I kept getting hit with those overdraft fees in my checking. It'd be like, I think it was like $35 at the time back then. And I kept getting hit with it. And I kept telling them, y'all are taking more money than I can even use to try to even spend my money. Like, can you put that money back so I can at least get back to zero? They did. They were actually really cool about it, but I had to like explain like you're hurting me more
Yeah.
than you're helping me at this point, guys.
I don't remember what the statistic was. Maybe if we clip this, I would like the statistic to show how much money Wells Fargo made from overdraft fees last year alone. That is so wild to me. That grinds my gears. People already don't have the money to pay something and then they charge 35, $50. Cuz I remember that feeling of what $35 means when you don't have any
Yeah,
money
that's a
and
gas
then you're
tank.
on top of that. That's a gas tank, right?
Yeah.
If you're driving just a economy car and you're like, oh, sweet. So there's another $35 I didn't have to go
Yeah.
on top of that.
And what is it the fee for? What is that even? There's nobody that has to work at all when my account goes over that goes to. Oh, we're trying to keep people from overdraft. Keep doing it. I'm like, just halt their account. I don't understand. If
Freeze
it's
it.
if it's
Deny the
at
transaction.
if it's past zero, you do like you do a credit card. Deny it. Deny it.
They're like, no, we're gonna steal a old page out of the American defense budget.
I'm
Just
like, yeah.
zero does not mean zero.
It's like they're afraid someone's gonna come in there and be like, I'm gonna keep taking hundreds out, keep charging me the fee, but I'll never pay it.
I had the same thing happen with Verizon. I got on a call. This is a client call like 2 years ago, and it was like what did we consider not Costa Rica, Puerto Rico to be? That's a district, right? So they're not a state; they're like an official district of
Yeah.
America, and it was something like that. So I looked at the number. I just call it because it looks like an American number. And about an hour into this call, as I'm closing, I find out it's like somewhere in the Bahamas or something like that. I'm like, hey, let me call you on WhatsApp. In that hour, I got no messages. And then I get a bill a month later for $340 for that one phone call.
For one phone call over
One
there.
phone call. So I
Wow.
call them, the rep's like, hey, we can't do anything about this. And she's like, I can't even guarantee if it goes to a manager that they'll do anything about it. And I got the most Karen of Karens at Verizon, wherever customer support service. And I'm like, hey, at the end of the day, when I realized I was really losing this battle, I was like, she's like, well, who's going to pay for these charges? I'm like, well, I don't know enough about your industry to just assume anything. But based on the fact when I have been internationally traveling, that you guys offer me for $9.99 a day, unlimited international calling, I think somewhere between $9.99 and $340, we could find a reasonable range not to fuck me as hard. I don't know if I'm out of pocket here, but you know, like I don't think the data packets that were being transferred from my phone to the Bahamas range $340. 'Cause I didn't give you guys a heads up, you know. So they were really cool. They took off $40, I think $60. I was like, wow, fuck you guys.
Thank you. Basically took off your hour's pay worth of helping me on this.
Yeah, she was like, oh, and the best part was she was like, I'm gonna go listen, put me on hold. She went and listened to the customer reps, like handling of escalation for this call, and basically was threatening her job on the line if she found out that that customer service rep said that she could do something about the call. So not only am I defending trying to getting a lower bill, I'm like somehow hooked into this poor woman's job. I'm like, dude, this is so far. I
I
just
would
want like,
you just double down on it and be like, "Oh, you think you'll get fired if you don't help me?" Or if you do help me, you just
well,
come back from the other end, get her in a sandwich.
the best part is they're like, well, we sent you a text. And I'm like, how can I prove to you I didn't get a text? And they're like, sir, we're looking in the system. We can see you got a text. And I'm like, I'm looking at my phone and I didn't receive a text. I'm like, this is awesome. This is like being in a jury of their peers. I'm like, there's nothing I can say because I really didn't receive a text. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been on the call. You
I
know?
had on my issue a few years ago with Verizon. I was like, "Hey, what's going on here?" And they kept saying the same thing, like, "Oh, there's something." I go, "Hey, I'm not going away. So you and I, like, you can't just hang up on me. I know you can't, and my problem hasn't been resolved. So we go up the ladder, or you resolved it for me." And so we looked at it. We went back and forth, and he goes, "Oh, I see now that you're like on an old plan because I've been with Verizon a long time. You're like on an old plan. So let's just get you on the new plan." I was like, "Well, hey, Mr. Upsell, let's go ahead. I get where this is going. Let's talk about it. Let's see what it is." He tried to upsell me on this other stuff, and he goes, "Actually, if we get you just on our new unlimited plan, it'll be less money than what you're currently paying now, and you'll get ESPN Plus, and you'll get Disney Plus." And I was like, "Why haven't we led with that conversation since the start of this? Why did it make me reaching out for a bill discrepancy?" And then we went through all that, and now we're here. And I was like, "I'll take that. Yeah, that sounds good, man."
Yeah. Make my problems go away.
Make my problems go away and tickle me a little
And
bit. Something.
the
I don't
thing
know.
was, if I would have called before I got my bill, by the way, they would have made it go away. They would have honored the $9.99. But because I called after I got my bill, the billing cycle had complete. So then they're like, "Hey, there's nothing we can do. You're calling a day after the bill cycle is complete." And I'm like, "Well, I just got my fucking bill. So how does this work?"
I'm sure you got a few dollars laying around, Mr.
Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. Verizon. If you could just drop some of those in my account, a little bit of credit.
Corporate America, man. I'm telling you. I love it and I hate it all at the same time. Hey, a hard segue here. You know what happened to me today? Wanna take a guess?
Got hit in the face by a dodgeball.
I could see how that's a logical conclusion. No, I was on a meeting with a fellow team member of mine, and I had a scorpion crawl up my leg.
A scorpion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were y'all working outside, or this is
Dude,
inside?
right here, what you're looking at. I had a little chilly. Sometimes I like to have a blanket in my office, whatever. And fostering Luke's dog, she's been tracking in leaves and stuff. I'm like, man, these leaves, dude, they keep getting in the house. And I went down to scratch my leg, pull up a freaking scorpion. Dude, when I tell you, I haven't felt that amount of adrenaline in my life in a long time. I came out of my skin, out of my chair. I don't know how that dude got in the house, let alone up the blanket and onto my leg.
We haven't seen. There's no scorpions or anything in Florida, so we didn't really see those much growing up. either. So if I would see one, I'd probably be like, "Holy shit, what do I do with that thing?"
We've had a couple get in the house, and so since having the new dog in the house, the cats have been hanging out in like either the closet or the laundry room,
Hmm.
and normally the cats will take care of them because they're not super like these specific types of scorpions been getting in the house. They're just the tiny little yellow ones that you
Ah.
would see like in a was it a bottle of tequila or like a lollipop, something like that. So
What lollipops are you eating? The scorpions are in there.
have you not seen those?
No, I've seen tequila. I've never seen
Yeah.
a lollipop.
To be fair, I think that was in Thailand. They had like all kinds of weird stuff, crickets and scorpions
How
and
many licks does it
spiders.
take to get to the scorpion?
Right, right. No, they had deep fried scorpions too.
I can see that. That'd
Yeah,
probably be all right.
the crickets weren't that good. I don't see the appeal to the cooked crickets,
They're high. It's high cheap protein.
but the taste. It's the taste. I'm sure a hot dog is high in protein
Taste
too.
don't matter when you're trying to get a swole baby in Thailand.
You don't see too many swole Thailands.
Yeah, you don't mean probably.
Thais. Yeah.
Yeah, I
What?
don't understand. I'm looking forward to going over there and trying that kind of stuff one day. I don't know. You see all kinds of stuff: octopus, just raw fish, barely cooked.
Yeah, you see a lot of interesting stuff. And the cool stuff is that it's cheap. That does not grind my gears. I like a good country that has cheap food, good people. Many of those things we do not have in America.
We got about half of it.
Which part?
There's some good people. There's some good people out there.
It did a weird thing. Do you find yourself? So I was out with a buddy the other night, and we were just catching up, having a bro date or whatever. Run into some friends of his, and there was these two girls there that said they didn't go to ACL because of all. This is right when the Israel Palestine stuff had started kicking off,
Hmm.
and they said they didn't go out because they didn't feel safe. And so we were genuinely curious, and we're showing up like as men, we just genuinely can't like relate. Like when we're going out, we're not constantly observing our environment for people that are going to rape us. We're typically walking in a room, sizing up the biggest guy in the room, and be like, could he beat my ass? I don't know
Sure.
why, but that's just a total man thing that we do.
Yeah.
And so we were asking them like, what? Because I heard this from my wife. He heard it from a girlfriend of his, and now there's two women just that we happen to run into that night. They're telling us the same thing, and they were kind of hesitant to like really comment on it. We're like, we really want to know, like, why is it? It feels like the general atmosphere for women right now is that it is extremely
Was
dangerous.
this on a Friday a couple weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
It might have been that night specifically. Might have been because there was like the man. I don't know what I'm talking about, folks. So just don't take anything I'm about to say for granted. There was something where I guess one of the terrorist organizations had said like that Friday we're gonna go out and celebrate. It might not be. It might be Hamas. It might be Gaza. I don't know. It was just one of them was like, oh, we're gonna go out and celebrate and like bring terror to wherever you're at. Like it was like an announcement they had made, and it was that Friday. They said Friday the 13th, go out. And there's some spots stuff. There was like a stabbing and like
Yeah.
somewhere on Friday the 13th, and then there was another one where there was something else happened somewhere else, but that could have been it. But if it was that specific day, that was the night I went and saw Closey. Man, that was a good
was
show.
that? Yeah.
That was a fantastic show. Go see Closey, folks, if you want to see an awesome show. It's a good one.
Ella Stream's coming here next weekend, I think. I always want to go see
I'm
that.
I'm becoming a Daily Bread fan. Man,
Daily Bread is that.
their new album
Bread.
is fire. That is a
Mhm.
good new album. I want to see them.
Yeah, there's a lot of artists I want to see. I'm trying to think. Ellis Dream's a good one. I like him, but I gotta kind of be in the mood for that.
I'm getting an itch for Bonnaroo next year.
Same.
Getting a
Same.
Bonnaroo itches.
Mm-hmm.
Little tickle.
Yeah, we gotta start getting our stuff together for Burning Man. You can never plan too far in advance for Burning Man.
And we're already playing for a couple years from now, you know?
Yeah, we gotta get that stuff together. But yeah, so I don't know what it is about kind of like the general atmosphere. Do you feel like it's proliferated by social media? Because
Yeah, but I don't think it's like I don't really see it much here in Florida at all. I just think maybe that city and the tech people are kind of like that because they're online and seeing all the news. Anyone that I see that's constantly on the news and stuff like that are like that. Everyone
right,
else that's like busy and's got shit they got to do is not like that that I know
yeah,
of. Like I talk with business owners and people all the time. They're not worried about that right now. Like they got
mm-hmm,
their own problems they're trying to solve. They got problems over here. That's been happening for thousands of years. There is
right,
nothing that we're going to do. What people I think are worried about is all the other stuff that's happening, the wars that are popping up everywhere else or contingency. And they think that where I think because you got one side supporting Palestine and you got like the other half of the world allies supporting Israel. And when
mm-hmm.
that like because you got half and half here, that's the makings of a World War III or whatever that people are worried about. I don't think they're worried about the fights having over there. I think it's the tension of like, could we go this? But this happens like every 10 years. We always see this. We always see them fighting, and then everyone's like, oh, we're gonna go to World War III because one half of the world supports Palestine, the other half of the world supports Israel. And everyone this goes happens every 10 years. They go and fight each other for the land. And it's like, hey, look, just let them they're fighting for their what they gotta do. It sucks.
The more I learn
They
about it,
shouldn't be
though,
doing it, but
so I don't know that carpet bombing the city was, or Gaza Strip was necessarily the right answer on that one.
at all. Yeah.
Um,
Bombing
you
each other
know,
should be so yeah. I mean, is what
like
it
I
is.
understand where both sides are coming from, for
Mhm.
sure. And if anything, I feel a little bit more empathetic towards Palestine because it's essentially been like an open air prison state, essentially,
Yeah, I
with the
mean,
way it's policed.
I've been learning a lot from this whole situation. I've definitely been leaning more towards Palestine, I think. But then again, Palestine's also attacking Israel, I think,
It's the
and
loudest ones, right?
it's the
It's like what
loudest
we see
ones. They
in
go back and
politics.
forth,
It's
but
the radicalized. You know, they're like, hey, we've got to take back this stuff or whatever. But for the people of Palestine, there's literally nowhere to go. Egypt's
yeah,
like, hey, we don't have very much money, but with the money we do have, we are putting it on the border, so you guys can't come. You can't bring your problem this way. And it's kind of all the way around fortified borders of millions of people. Like we talked about this on an episode not too long ago. Just the population lottery we have of living here. We
mm-hmm.
don't. Can you imagine like scraping and working and surviving your whole life? Like maybe you get to a point where you finally have a home you're proud of, a family you're proud of, and whatever a significant amount of money would be to you, 50, 100, 150 grand saved up, you know, like an equivalent currency. Like you're like, you know what? I've made the best of my situation. And then it's seemingly overnight, your house gets bombed or your street gets bombed. You're trying to evacuate your family, and you're amongst millions. Like we've been in crowds of tens of thousands of people, like 100,000 people. That's a ton
That's
of fucking people.
that's a ton of people. Yeah, and
And,
they're
and for
all
for even to, like it to be reasonable to enjoy yourself, there are a ton of resources
mm-hmm,
supporting that,
mm-hmm,
right? Like cutting off water, no electricity, like nowhere to really go to the bathroom. What a hellhole.
yeah. Yeah, it's. I'm wondering how they are getting like weapons and stuff into Palestine though too, since they are surrounded. It's interesting how those are getting over there. I was
Well,
thinking about the
the
other day.
rockets they're making out of like uh, plumbing supplies, like sewer pipes,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially like um, what was it? Nitrogen, phosphate, something like that. Fertilizer. They're essentially sending over fertilizer bombs is what they're lighting off. Israel is not. Israel is sending in very guided bombs,
Yeah,
blowing shit up. I mean,
they
they're targeting stuff.
they've got yeah their weapons are a lot better systems. Like their Iron Dome. That's a pretty
Wild.
cool product. You know that's created and tested in Hawaii, right? They put it all around the islands and tested them out there and like on top of the hills. That's what their tour guy was telling us. He goes, "You ever seen that Iron Dome in Israel?" He goes, "That's where they were testing it. It was right over there." He goes,
Does Hawaii have something like that for nukes, you think?
"Well, I was thinking, does Hawaii have that, and does the rest of the country have that? Like, are they placed around Washington D.C. and we've never had to use them because we haven't had a missile ever come in, but they're like secretly placed everywhere. Like
Mm,
if Israel has that and it's been pretty good success rate of their country not getting bombed because of those things. There, and we're the ones who created it.
yeah.
It's got to be in there. And it went from the Iron Dome. I think it's an Iron Laser Dome now. Like it's a laser system that they have. It was
Yeah.
just the bullets before. They just millions of bullets as fast as it can.
Oh, it's missiles. The Iron Dome is missiles.
Oh, it's missiles. Oh, I thought it was guns.
Yeah, you can watch the missiles go up and curve into the
It's
other missiles.
it's a crazy system, but I wonder
Wow.
how many of those bad boys we have placed around our own country. Like what
So I went
cities?
down a little bit of a rabbit hole when I was learning about that, and one of those animated science channels or whatever was showing if we did get attacked with nuclear weapons, one of the things that they might do is send some of the warheads up into like the stratosphere and detonate them as EMPs so that our satellites couldn't target the other nuclear warheads that were already so like the ICBMs that we have in cold storage,
Mm,
apparently a lot of those have three destinations that they're just targeted for. So they're dumb in a sense. So if the nuclear briefcase was
mm,
opened and activated, the codes are really just being sent to those silos and selecting one of three pre-dedicated destinations so that it doesn't really need too many electronics for it to effectively get where it's going to go. Now we
mm.
have other ones that are, for sure tricked out and made more recently. Well, you're talking floppy disk era technology that they're like, hey, if we get attacked, we have a ton of dumb bombs that will just go where they're meant to go. They're not going to be
Yeah.
redirected en route.
Well, it's like I know a friend, a place that makes defense stuff, and they have a room way in the back where they still have like Vietnam and World War II era machinery back there. And they do a checkup on it every now and then because that's their like backup equipment
Mm-hmm.
of like, yeah, we this stuff just runs on engines and gas. You can't hack
Yep.
these systems.
Yeah.
So they got levels of tanks and jeeps and armory just so it doesn't get hacked. I was like,
Yeah.
that's
I mean,
nuts.
you got to have that too, right? Like if an EMP goes off, over the state, like if it was to go off of DC, like you're shutting down so much critical infrastructure, right? I mean,
Hmm.
everything's electronic these days. I don't know. Yeah, that's a weird thing. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. Like the more you're tapped in to stuff
Hmm.
like that, the more it kind of ramps up your nervous system and you just feel anxious
It
about
also makes you
everything.
wonder when we're trying to switch, like they're trying to switch a lot of the stuff over to the electric grid, cars, machinery and stuff over to the electric grid. If you go to Tico here in Tampa, right? There is a like military level presence that is
Hmm.
always on guard protecting that place, right? Because if that
Yeah.
place shuts down, that's a whole city. And I'm sure every other Tico's is probably a little bit more important because of MacDill Air Force Base is right
Hmm.
there. So they're probably a lot more guarded. But I feel like almost switching to electric puts you even at more of a mild risk, you know?
There's an argument to be made there for sure. I mean, the fossil fuel industry definitely would back that argument.
For
Absolutely.
sure. It
Yeah.
definitely would. But it just something interesting to think about because if they have military guarded now before almost everything is on electric, what is it going to be like then? Then you got an Iron Dome over every major Tico out there.
Well, that's what I was wondering. It's like for nukes, though, um, is it an Iron Dome in the sense like in Israel, those bombs are getting pretty close, and about 10% of them make it through. They say like their success rate is about 91%, 92%.
Yeah.
So some do get through. And the day that everything popped off, Hamas launched 5,000
They
missiles.
just they played the numbers game. They're like, we're just gonna
Right?
send them off.
5,000.
Israel's like, we don't need a big Iron Dome. We just need something to protect these little pocket rockets coming over the border.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. and that's good for the industrial base. So I heard a thought the other day, and it was these two people kind of arguing over nonsense, but one of them was a Trump supporter. That's not really relevant, but the other guy was a Democrat, clearly on Biden's side. And one of the points he made that who's the guy that the Darth Vader looking man from the Republican Party that is their speaker. Um, Looks like he had a stroke recently as he was talking. He just kind of shut down.
Oh, keep talking. I'll
Yeah.
find it.
His face looks like it's literally melting off.
I call him the old frog.
Yeah. So they were both kind of on the same side that the thing I didn't think about, the money we are sending to Ukraine, we're actually spending on
Mitch
our own
McConnell.
economy.
Mitch
Yeah, Mitch
McConnell.
McConnell. We're spending here and sending the weapons there. So I guess the way they're getting bipartisan support for all this money that we've been spending in Ukraine isn't really by sending money to Ukraine. Some of it is, but a vast majority of it is paying our contractors to build the weapons and the machinery, etc., and sending it over. But the counter argument to that is, have you ever seen how government contractors are awarded and paid? It's still on the WW2 contract of whatever it takes, and we prorate like 25 or 30% above that cost just in case, right? Like so whoever's awarded it,
Oh yeah.
they literally write them a blank check and just say whatever it takes to get it done, then tack on 30% for your margin after the whatever it takes. That's how we end up with bolts that cost $50,000 and crazy stuff like that, you know?
In Maui, when we went there, the tour guide that we had talked about, you go see all this land out here with the cow pastures and everything. We went to one of the national parks, the Dormant Mountain. I cannot say the name, but it starts with an H. But it's huge, and on the side of the mountain is just all cattle land. He goes, all this land right here. So there were some of the original like people that came in, besides the people that were originally living here, the colonists, I guess you'll call them. They came as missionaries, and then they were like, we could buy this land pretty cheap and create a cattle ranch. So they went and bought out the entire island, basically, like all around the mountain, and then turned into cattle, and then made a deal with the government to where all the meat for all the Navy comes from that island with the cattle, and they only directly sell to the government at premium steak cost. They go, it's not cheapo steak that you're going to get. It's like going to a very nice steakhouse premium cost level. And then
I mean,
the
if
missionaries
someone
were like,
deserves premium steak, it is the people that are
the missionaries
defending
are
the
like,
country.
you can have the tip of our mountain with some nice tax write-offs, and you can make it a nice national park too.
Oh, you know what I was thinking earlier? Back to the missile silo thing. Can you imagine how mind-numbingly boring the job would be to just be in a nuclear silo waiting for the call? Nothing's happening.
You're just sitting there. You're just shifts constantly
Yeah.
moving in and out. You're just constantly sweeping the floor, maybe.
And they got to be on their P's and fucking Q's because it's a nuclear warhead, you know? So they can't just like be on TikTok
They
hanging
can't.
out.
No, they're probably on TikTok and hanging out because you're just sitting around and you're just waiting around. You're just waiting for the
How
queue.
much Wi-Fi do you think's going on around a nuclear warhead?
How much Wi-Fi?
Yeah, like how much just system vulnerability do you think they're allowing to be
Well,
in the
the
presence
warheads
of
are
nuclear
more.
warheads?
Well, the warheads these days are more or less on submarines now. I'm sure we got a couple here and there, but they're more just on submarines. I don't. Have you seen the size? We went to the submarine museum there in Hawaii, and the new submarines are being built like 4 stories high, like 4 or 5 stories high, and the warheads they'll have like 3 warheads just standing straight up in them. Those things look crazy, and they're like, oh yeah, we talk about like American multitasking. These things kind of patrolled the waters anyway, so we were like, let's just move the warheads out to there, and then instead of 2 people doing 2 jobs, we'll have one person doing 5 jobs.
I saw a video of a guy fishing. And he was deep sea fishing, and he had on his bottom radar thing or whatever, and it showed a sub
Oh,
coming
yeah.
under him.
I
He
saw
started playing
that.
some American shit.
Boop.
I'm not gonna lie, my ass would pucker up a little bit just knowing good old American freedom just trucking
I would
along
have
under
looked
you.
up Morse code on my thing and just tap the Morse code on my boat.
Send nudes.
Send. The guy down there just goes, ha.
That's another job that I would not envy is being on a sub for 6 months.
Yeah, that
Just
doesn't sound fun. Though you don't really hear about many subs sinking anymore. Like that doesn't sound like a problem, but still being stuck on a sub, those things are a lot bigger than I thought they were, though.
the one that when the Russia stuff popped off and they're making aggressive statements towards us. I follow this guy on TikTok that does a lot of breakdowns of military whatever, and the sub that they were touting and they're like, hey, don't fuck with us because of XYZ. He did a breakdown about that one, and so this sub is so big it has a sister vessel, a sister sub that is linked to it most of the time and just trolls behind it. And because of that, it can only do, I think, like it was like 5 to 7 knots at a
Mm.
time. And so he was like, one, this thing is loud as fuck because it's just it's the opposite of stealth. So for them to say that we don't know where it's at all the time, we do. Two, there was an accident with the sister sub. It caught on fire and killed everyone aboard. It killed like 17 or 30 of sailors that were trapped inside the sub. Like one of the oxygen tanks exploded or something, and the whole sub caught on fire. And so he's like, two, they really need to like kind of take care of their own before they're making threats to us.
Yeah.
And so when they made these aggressive remarks and they were like, he was like, this is public information. He's like, I'm not, saying something like our military, they know so much more than I'm able to get my hands on. He goes, I'm able to track where the sub's at right now. And they're like, oh, we're sneaky, sneaky. He's like, it's actually right here by the Arctic based on public information. But when it comes to our sub stuff, I mean, propaganda wise, I'm not sure how much we would necessarily be privy to in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Our military is pretty good at hushing stuff that they don't want us, to know about or positioning us like,
They're pretty good at that.
yeah, you know.
Until a blockbuster movie comes out, then you're on the hook.
And I listened to RFK the other day. Didn't you tell me to listen to some of
Yeah.
his stuff?
Yeah. His interviews keep getting taken down off of YouTube. It's interesting.
What a well-spoken man. I
Yeah.
mean, it's tough to listen to in the beginning.
If you get once you get
Literally.
past this scruffiness, then you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm like some of this.
Dude, I was like, man, the only other candidate that I kind of got behind was the chick, the governor from Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember her name, Ortega or something like that. 'Cause I was like, oh, I kind of align, with
Yeah.
where she's at. But RFK, that dude, he's with it.
I did find it funny how he played something the other day. Because they were giving him, conservatives were giving him shit the other day for being like, oh, he said he'll get rid of guns or whatever, if given the power. And then I look back to what he actually said, and he goes, yeah, if both Democrats and Republicans in the House and Senate all voted to get rid of the Second Amendment, then yeah, we would do that because it's how things work. He goes, I would do that, but obviously no one would do that. Like,
Right.
we're never going to go that direction. It was just funny.
Yeah.
He was like, they were like, would you do that? He was like, yeah, that's how our system works. So like, sure, that's what we would do, but that's
Yeah. I'm curious. We kind of talked about this a little bit last week, but I hadn't listened to any stuff. So like, I didn't, I wasn't like, who's going to peel away, but like, what percentage of the votes, because he is getting censored for sure.
I would say half.
Like
I would say not half. I would say close to half of,
close to half.
I think close to half. Cause I think he's got a lot of old school liberal liberalism,
Hmm.
libertarian, sorry, style of thinking. And I think a lot of the people that are fed up that were with the Democratic side, that are like a lot of the old Democrats that are probably considered more libertarian now, are going to go, hey, this guy's my age. This guy's thinking like I've always thought. And I think a lot of people forget how many boomers are out there,
Yeah.
and they're going to
I'm just
go
because
that direction.
he's not really going to get on a debate platform though.
Yeah.
And the voters, the people that actually go out and vote, do watch the news.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the thing. I agree with his thinking that podcast could be the thing that gives him a platform. So like that's why he's doing the tours the way he is.
Yeah.
I
I think the
definitely think
podcast
that's
is a
gonna
great way. He's the first president to actually, well, Bernie Sanders did some, but
yeah,
he's the first presidential candidate I've seen that's doing all the platforms. He's
yeah.
doing, every leaning way. He's jumping on one, which I love. He's not sticking to one side of trying to gain the votes just on one side. He's like, I'll
Why do
talk
you
to
think he's
everybody.
getting censored? Like what is that? Like what YouTube
He's
alone?
very against vaccines. He's like
Yeah.
because he has that problem because he got vaccine triggered, and it caused his whole problem that he has with his voice.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, I'm not against vaccines. I'm against vaccines that there's obviously been reports that it's causing harm,
Yeah.
and they're trying to ignore it, or where they're not testing it quick enough and they're putting out. He's like, polio vaccine, fantastic, right? That saved millions. It went through testing. They saw it saved, and it did fantastic. He goes, but then you have all these other ones. He goes, I'm a prime example of like a problem that has happened,
Yeah.
with all these newer vaccines that are coming out. They're saying we're working, and they're not. So because of that, they start shutting them down on that. And because he talks down about the COVID vaccines and all that too.
Yeah. Which is amazing to think like we're that far removed from that, from COVID at this
Yeah.
point.
Well,
Like everybody's just accepted COVID's
how
just a
much is
new
Pfizer
flu.
paying YouTube and Google?
Mm,
Because I'll forget, YouTube and Google are both private companies still.
yeah.
I mean, publicly traded, but for the most part, private companies. They can make their own
Right.
decisions.
Yeah. I mean, it's a private enterprise.
Private
Right.
enterprise, yeah. So if
Yeah.
Pfizer wants to pay them to hush hush, then they're like, fuck it, however much you want to pay us, we'll do it.
Do you think it's that? Do you think it's folks in the pocket, or do you think it's people in power
I think it's
in their
even
belief
people.
system
I think it's even
thinking,
people inside their system, right? Like there was the whole thing that Facebook was getting in trouble for, or was it Facebook? No, Twitter employees were getting in trouble for because they were obviously like the engineers on the inside were obviously skewing the algorithms to go a certain way,
yeah.
and the company was just so big that they couldn't control it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure that's happening within YouTube as well.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Tom
Yeah.
made a good point. He goes, it's kind of interesting. He said because there was a video I tagged Tim Dillon in on one of the clips, and he goes, for a little while after that, your videos weren't getting as many views. It took a little while for your views to go back up, and he goes, I was reviewing that, and he goes, Tim Dillon's one of those people that like the algorithm and the social media like try to push down, and he goes, because you tagged him in that could have been what it was for a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. He goes, you might have got a little shadow ban because you like promoted something that the platform doesn't want you to promote.
Yeah. That's weird to think in an age where information is so available. I mean, we're like past an information age and moving into an artificial intelligence age, but that censorship
The
is still a thing.
the artificial intelligence, the guy that created ChatGPT, or no, the guy that created OpenAI went on Joe Rogan. Highly recommend listening
Yeah.
to that one. Actually hearing like somebody, because we keep hearing good and bad about AI, right? And it's okay, from the guy that's actually created it, he had like some very good points. He's like, everyone thinks it's going to do this, it's going to take people's jobs, but it's a tool. It's not.
Right.
And yeah, he goes, I'm not saying it's not going to take people's jobs. Once the combustible engine was created, all of a sudden you have horse and carriage buggies are gone. Like, yeah, like some jobs are going to go away, but now you have a better tool to use towards other things.
Right.
He goes, I'm not saying it's not going to do that, but everyone had this feeling as well when we had like huge jumps in technology, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So he had some really interesting good points, and then you could obviously tell how detached he was from like everyday stuff. It was very interesting, like his thoughts. Like Joe Rogan would say something that was like pretty common knowledge, like what's going on. He'd be like, "What? Like, what do you like? What's that going on?" And you're like, "Wow, this guy's like all in, just focused on this." Very.
Yeah.
He's like, "I'm leading the way on the next thing."
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't listen to that, mainly because I saw a lot of people say it was kind of shit and they didn't learn anything that they didn't already know. But I'll check it out because it is interesting when you have folks like Mr. Beast. He's the
Hmm.
YouTube guy,
Yeah.
right? And that's all his bandwidth is focused on is like making mega videos. And you have someone like Elon's probably not even a great example because he just seems to be Elon's kind of like the
I will
Diplo
outwork you.
of
You can't
technology.
outwork me. I live on my couch so I can work.
I'm just like it's interesting being in an age like now we're in our early 30s and I'm like I still want to do all the things and I thought by now I would be more of a person that would be headlong into one thing. But I think sometimes you just have freaks of nature that come along and they're like I only want to make this thing be the thing, right? Like a
Yes.
Tesla, he was just obsessed, right?
It's like what we've thought about, like when we're at festivals and we're like, how much more crispier can we make that sound? You know?
Mm,
And you're like, if I had all the money in the world and then I could make money making that sound crispier, what could I
yeah.
do? You know? And that's just somebody that's like, if I can get to fucking Mars, you know, what kind of real estate cost is that going to be up there?
You definitely see that with some of the stages of Burning Man. Someone that had arrived and they are realizing their dream, and they're like, I don't know about that whole lovey-dovey trance music, but the techno stage I'm about to build, there's going to be so much fire and
Someone saw
lasers.
Carl Cox and they were like, that's cool, but like, where's the bass?
Where's the
So
bass?
it's like, I'll make the bass. I'll do it. And we'll call it
Oh, but
X.
back to the shows that I think you do need to see. We went and saw Tale of Us last
I've
Friday.
seen Tales of Us
Have you?
years ago, Miami Music Week. Yeah. Great
Yeah.
show. Great show. That's
Wow.
a sucks you in type
Yeah.
of music. And you're just gonna
So good.
vibe
The
out to it for a
production
while.
was wild.
Did you notice that like with Tales of Us, you could have conversations with the people around you pretty easily?
At our venue, we
Uh,
couldn't.
uh
The acoustics was pretty solid. It's just the venue itself, and we had a table that was like um, right next to the booth, right next to the sound array,
hmm
and I don't understand how people don't put in hearing protection. It it shows
Now I
anymore.
do. Like for sure,
Yeah.
I do. But I mean, I can understand why they did it years ago.
Uh-uh. I don't know. Once I got on that train, I'm like leaving a place and not having that ringing,
So
not
much
going to
better.
bed with fractals in your eyelids because the ringing is creating some kind of sub.
Well, not hearing the doo 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 while you're trying to
Yeah.
go to sleep is beautiful. You just take, you're like, oh, I can fall asleep the normal now. It is
I've had a
crazy.
I've had a couple conversations with folks at venues. So
That's who
I've
we should
had
get us a sponsor as an earplug company. Fuck.
eargasm.
Eargasm. We
Shout
should
out.
get them
But do you
sponsors.
ever have people talk to you? And because I'm half deaf, kind of as it is, but once I put in my hearing protection, I've had multiple people trying to have conversations with me at shows,
I feel like
and
more people want to talk to me when I have them in than I do when I don't.
I'm like, I'll smile and kind of like play along, like yeah, and then they give you that just stare.
You're like, what are you? You're not gonna
I'm
reply?
like, oh, that wasn't a yes or no kind of thing. Like
Those
that was
ones I
a
got from
and or.
you gave me worked out really good actually. That I can hear conversations. I mean, I usually have to have them repeat, and I can hear it.
I got to
But
be staring at lips. I mean, I can for sure we can have conversations, but I got to be like kind of trying to decipher what are you saying?
yeah, I always like them. You just pop them and you just pop them out at the end of the show. Go on to the next
Yeah.
thing. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I
I don't
love.
know that I'm a guy that's gonna get on board with the lanyard ones. I just feel like that's a little much. I like to be a little indiscreet. You know?
Yeah, I like them just one in each, and then I just pop them out
I
after
don't
the
want to.
show.
I don't want a tampon string hanging out of my ear. I'm good. They're not
You don't
going
want that
anywhere.
Bass Pro Fishing look, you know,
Yeah.
with your sunglasses.
You know, we should get jackets like with sponsors on it, like sponsors that would make sense for
Dude,
festival
we'll get
scene.
Eargasm to sponsor, and then we'll get those things like to hold your sunglasses up, but it's to hold your ears, and it'll say professional.
Yeah,
That's $1 million idea.
I want all my favorite brands just on a like jacket, like a Heisman jacket.
Like you used to see those at the malls in the Panhandle. Remember that they had like the M&Ms and the Snickers.
Uh huh. But I want to choose the brands, right?
It's Clorox.
Like Dole pineapple juice. Just pick random brands.
Kraft. That's the new totems.
I see potential there, but we'd have to follow it up by having the associated products in a bag or something like that. Someone's like, "What's the bleach about?" And you just pull out a bottle of bleach out of your backpack and you're like, "Do you need anything cleaned? I got you. Some Lysol."
Were you looking for the
Deodorant.
answer? I found it.
Like the mayonnaise man. Hey man, what's the mayonnaise about? I want some mayonnaise.
That guy. He's like, I want some. Oh, you want mayonnaise? I don't have any mayonnaise, but it's on your flag. Oh no, that's actually mayo. That's not.
That's just good old fashioned mayonnaise on that flag, brother.
Well, we always talked about who are the people that are testing out like new drugs that come around, right? Like to make sure like how they're spreading the word. Like, oh, I got this new drug. This is good. That guy is one of them. He saw mayonnaise. He's like, never heard of that one before. I don't know.
Dude, Tales of Us, that was a weird thing. At the beginning of the show, like the opener, I saw 2 people drop out, like one at the very beginning, and then an hour later, another person like out of it. They obviously took some bad something. And I'm like, it's
Test your
so hard
drugs,
for me. I
people.
can't imagine people don't test them, you know? Like the younger they are, the more I get it. But the older they are, I'm like, is this?
Yeah, if you're older, if like protect yourself now. Ooh.
Yeah, not that you shouldn't protect yourself when you're young. I mean, you're
You
just
should
as
still,
susceptible when
too,
you're young.
yeah.
It's just being
Everyone
around the
should test.
circuit, going to a couple shows. It's just, it blows my mind that people just take people for their word when it comes to something that is black market.
Yeah.
You know?
No matter where it's
Like,
from.
If I bought a car off of Facebook Marketplace, I'm not just taking somebody's word and be like, oh, it runs good? Sick. Like, no, I'm going to check it out. It's like, there's no regulation.
Anyone that ever gives you like, I think a lot of people get scared to ask, you know, their connection to like test. Never be afraid to test. Always ask that you can test, because then if they're afraid and they get mad at you about testing, that's a good sign not to buy that product.
Yeah. Well, also, it's a function of lack of opportunities, lack of channels to go to. So if someone has just one person that they know, they're scared to probably ask them because they're like, they're scared to find out if it's actually not and deprive themselves of the opportunity of having a gamble of a good time.
That's why, like, when we've been at festivals, if we ever needed something, you got it? Cool. Do you have a test kit? And if they don't, always move on. There's going to be another person. You find that one that's like, oh yeah, I got some. Perfect. That's the guy I'm looking for right there.
I always test my goldfish. You just can't trust the expiration date anymore, you know?
And the flavors that go on it, who knows where that flavor came from to get mixed in?
Is that pizza or is that cheddar?
Is that oregano? Or
if it's dill pickle, I don't want it. Shit's for the birds.
You think it's ham and it's shrimp. You're like, what happened?
The old ham and shrimp trick.
The old ham and shrimp trick. Man, Grandma always told me, watch out for the shrimp. If it ain't hammy, it's shrimpy.
I'm trying to buy some pork and I got served seafood. Some bitch.
You know what also grinds my gears?
I had a list here for you.
Speaking of brands, is that there's not many funny commercials anymore. There used to be a ton of like good funny commercials, and it's like if I'm gonna watch a brand, if you're gonna get me to watch advertise, at least give me some more comedy. The past several
Mhm.
Super Bowl years of commercials, they used to be all hilarious. You could stick. Remember the Skittles? You lit liquor, you know? That's a
Mhm.
solid one, right?
Doritos. I mean, Doritos, like half of their branding was showing up
Was
for Super
showing
Bowl
up for
ads.
that. It was awesome. What has happened to the commercial? Now they're like, we got to be meaningful. Like, who
Why
wants
does everyone have
that?
feelings these days?
Who wants feelings? I want a rude, funny commercial. You know,
Make me laugh.
give me a
Comedy's supposed to
laugh.
be rude. Offend me.
Offend me. Yeah, get me offended.
Turn
Make
me
me.
on. Make me feel something.
You really want me to remember that brand? Make me feel some type of way differently than what I went into this commercial with. You know,
Alter my consciousness.
I'm already
man.
feeling going in. I don't want to feel coming out. Like, give me alter my conscious.
I think it was like Axe too. They used to have like that centaur of a person where you'd be like, what? No, it was Old Spice.
Old Spice.
That's what it was. Yeah. Where you're like, I don't know what's going
I don't
on
know what
here,
it is, but I'll watch this commercial. This is a good one.
yeah. And Old Spice, like every time I use it, I'm gonna be honest, it burns the shit out of my armpits because all the chemicals in it.
Smells
But the
good.
indoctrination of the commercials makes me believe it's a good product.
Think about Bud Light. They had it. Dilly dilly. Dilly
Dude, they
dilly.
had it.
You had
They
it. It was
had it.
right there. You could have ran with that for
I wonder how long. I don't know if
For
their
a
company's ever gonna recover.
for a long time. You could have. I've liked Modelo's commercials. Those have been really good. Red Bull gives you wings. Those are. They used to be a little bit more raunchier.
Similar theme of what grinds my gears. We went to the theme park Saturday. Went to Six Flags. Just standing in line with nothing going on. We got caught in a couple bad lines. We got a good couple 15-minute waits where like, hey, that's worth it. 15 minutes for a
Yeah.
roller coaster, awesome. We got stuck on one. It was like 70. It was like 90 minutes we're waiting in line, like an hour and a half. Fucking nothing. And I'm like, we can't put a TV, anything. Like there's nothing you can do to amuse the people at an amusement park while they're in line. You know people are waiting for an hour
Which
and a
makes
half.
you almost appreciate like Universal level theme park or like a Disney theme park where their lines are built even with themes and things going on.
Yes.
In that like you have like tiers of theme parks, right? Like
Yes.
to the point to where Busch Gardens and Six Flags are like, stay on the other side of that pole, bitch. You don't come over here.
I saw 5 people throw up. 5 people at the park.
Ooh.
I don't know that I've ever seen it one time. Like maybe one time
Yeah.
a kid gets sick. Dude, it was everywhere. They were doing the best they could to clean it up. But I was like, what is going
is
on with
happening?
this ratchet ass theme park where like I'm seeing this happen?
Six
everywhere.
Flags is like the Walmart of theme parks, though.
The rides were dope.
The rides are
were
great. You
awesome.
definitely can tell they keep the ride, but like everything else is just
Dude,
they're like,
so bad.
we know you're not here for that. You're here for the ride.
we had some altered consciousness going on, and so I'm in line to get my refillable cup going on. You know what I mean? And we get up there, my buddy's like, "Hey, can I just get another cup?" I walked away and I said a comment. I'll tell about the experience, but I was like, man, I feel kind of bad. Like, why would they put him in the cash register? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like someone mentally handicapped? Like, why would they put him in the cash register? And they're like, Colton, he's not mentally handicapped, dude. He was just really stoned.
Dude, I sympathize exactly with him because I worked at Busch Gardens for a little while and I would get lit going into work.
My buddy had to ask for the cup 5 times.
Hey, can I get the cup? Yeah. The cup?
He would just do that,
Oh, yeah.
that stare, just stare off into space a little bit. And he's like, hey, how can I help you? The dude's like, yo, my cup, it's under the drink machine. All you have to do is fill it.
He's got great customer service until the service. Like, you know?
No, he thought he was a customer. And I saw the guy behind because I was the one like I have to pump the brakes on this. Like, who's gonna say something? And this guy's putting jalapenos on the nachos behind him. I could tell he was like, dude, this ain't my problem. My job is putting cheese on these chips and jalapenos, and I'm doing that. And this line was so fucked up. It took us like 45 minutes to get a drink refill.
There were some messed up people working in those restaurants. Like, I mean, I'm talking about like there was some like there's no other way I can say it. There are some of the dumbest people I've ever worked with. At, when I was working,
Watching
at Busch
you
Gardens.
wordsmith that statement's great.
I was trying to figure out a better way to do it, but like these are people that like that's their peak, and they don't give a shit. Right there,
Yeah.
they're like, I'm good here. I don't really plan on doing much else. I don't want to do much else. And they're like, I was like pretty much graduating and then about to go off and do stuff. So I just needed this job for a little while. And man, there are some people there that just like straight up don't give a shit about going. And they get a paycheck so they can buy their weed. That was
Yeah.
it.
I mean, it's like a
And
great job
I
for someone graduating high school. I'm like,
It was so
you know.
interesting though, because like they would just be standing there, and which is fine to me. I didn't care. Like, you should stand there, but I would just like start cleaning because I have to. Like, I'm just in my
Yeah.
mental head, like, this place is dirty. I got to clean it, and I start cleaning it. And they're like, "Hey man, do you want me to like help?" And I was like, honestly, I didn't. I was just like, no man, like the more, if you start cleaning more, then that's less stuff I have to clean, and I'm gonna get bored really quick. So like, just leave it. And I literally didn't care the way they were. I thought it was awesome because I could hang. Like, there was one guy that I worked with for a little while at Busch Gardens, super bad, but he was like, this one girl was like, "Hey, can I get some free popcorn?" He's like, "Show me them titties," and I'll get free popcorn. Like, these people were wild, just working with, and if there wasn't a boss around and chicks would come up drunk, he'd be like, "Show me them titties. Like, give me, you can get some stuff." And sometimes they would.
It's a numbers game.
Yeah. So other people were there, tried moving up. Met one guy. He was he founded the video game club at USF, and then he had some sort of degree, and then he was there. And I was like, "Where are you going after this?" He's like, "I don't really know."
And that's okay. Right?
Yeah,
That's all right.
But he was complaining about where he was.
Yeah, that's not all right.
That was the part. Like, the people
That's
that
not
told me they didn't care, and they're like, "I don't need more than this." I was like, I respect that. I respect
Right? Yeah.
that right there, dude. High five. Hell yeah. I love that attitude. I don't give a shit. I don't need to go up higher. But then there's people who are like, "I want to go up higher, but I'm too lazy to do it." Da, da, da. And you just hear them bitching and moaning. And those that like were like the first way, like, "I don't need to go higher than this," were the people that didn't really talk much.
Yeah.
They were like, "I don't need to go any higher than this. I'm good." And we would just sit there just staring at the crowd, people watch, either stone or we'd like drink a beer or something on the back end, just watch. I used to run my headphones all the way up through into my ear and cover my whole jacket up because I was working in the winter. I went through every Kanye West album working at that place. All Kid Cudi.
Yeah,
I-
that's back
the
in the
kids-
day when podcasts weren't really popping off. It was music.
The kids would like, you'd see the fake come up, right?
Mhm.
And I would tell them, "Hey, you're gonna get this taken. If you want a beer, you come right here. You don't go anywhere else in the park. You come right here. You tip me, or this is gone." And they were like, "Okay." And I get like $5 tips. Like, "Here you go. Yeah, you can take that beer." The only ones I never took was when the Brazilians came for summer break. We'd get a lot of students. Man, all those kids that have fake $100 bills coming through, all of them, because they're just what was given to them. And I'd be like, "I am not getting caught taking
Yeah.
$100 bills. You're gonna have to take that one back." I was like, "Go try it somewhere else," but that ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't take it from them. I'd just give it back to them. But
Yeah. Good man. Good man.
I was like, "Go, just." I a couple of times I was like, "See that person over there? It'll work there. Go, just go on over there." And sure enough, I knew who would take those bills.
Yeah. Well, just remember, folks, we are. You can buy our love. We're for sale. We'll sell out so fast.
Yeah.
We're going on 3 years on this podcast.
Oh yeah, we were on
And,
3 years. We are, yeah. It
You
would
write
have been
it.
3
You write
years
us a
this
check
month.
to burn this to the ground. You better believe it. It will burn so bright.
If you want us to shut up, you write us a nice big check. I'll shut up.
No fake hundreds, so please.
No fake hundreds, or a check that bounces. We're gonna test it.
As long as you got Wells Fargo, I don't mind if it bounces. All right, I think we found a good. Let's end on that. That's a good one. All right. Hey, if you guys like this episode, be sure to subscribe. Wait, did you see we were passing 200 subscribers on Spotify?
And that's on Spotify, which is awesome. Yeah. Thank you everyone for the follows and subscribing and listening. Y'all are with us. Y'all are hanging in there with us. We appreciate you. Thank you for listening.
We love you. All right, till next week, folks.